Hey Discmaniacs, it's Gavin Babcock. Super excited to show you guys what's in my bag for 2024. Let's get right into it. First up, my putting putters. I prefer my putting putters blank, so I don't know what one's what. Every time I make a putt, it goes back in, next putt, pull the front one out, back in. And I have had instances where I get like a tiny wings off the top into the water and I'm down a putter and only have one the rest of the round. So 2 putters is always my go-to, and I'm going with the Exo Hard Link. Next up, my understable throwing putter, and I think this is the greatest throwing putter in our lineup. Exo Hard Link beats up for these perfect straight approach shots. I'm gonna, for this one, opt the straight gap. This thing's held this understable stability that it's at right now for, I mean, like middle of last year. It's just flown the exact same. It's beat up perfect. I mean, this disc is super crucial in the woods or any left to right shot that isn't a forehand. Next up, we got the S-Line P3X. I've had this in the bag all of last year. Started out pretty neutral with a little stability, and now this thing is kind of how my length started out, and it just hyzer flip, dead straight, hit it flat, just slow drift right. I love how little glide this has compared to the Link. I feel like I can really hammer it. This thing has just been crucial. I'll sometimes use it for just short, dead straight forehands if it's like an awkward shot in the woods. But this is probably my go-to straight throwing putter if I need to throw a backhand on a wide open shot. And to round out the putter lineup, more of an approach disc, Razor Claw 3. Also had this. This was the one I put in the bag right when I got on the team last year, and it's beat up perfect. This thing is kind of flies like a slower, like stable MD4, maybe beat in MD4. I mean, I can hit it on Annie and just let it drift right and just have that soft fade. Perfect for little punch hyzer approaches. I'll sometimes forehand this if I need something to go straighter with some fade. But yeah, I mean, this thing is just a tank, and just nice soft flexes on backhand. Just kind of perfect go-to stable approach disc. First mid in the lineup, my most understable mid-range is this Eagle Claw MD3. I got this in 2017 when I was an intermediate, and then just kind of got put away once I had a different sponsor, and I was so excited to throw this back in the bag. Hit it flat and just drift right the whole time. I mean, this thing, I don't know what I would do without. I would spend hours looking for this if I ever lost it. The perfect beat up understable mid-range, and it's kind of same scenario with my Link. I feel like it's the middle of last year when I started throwing it a ton. It kind of beat up to a certain point, and it's like kind of stopped beating up, which I'm super thankful for because I never want this thing to get too flippy. Next up, we got the Method, the Shadow Titan Method. This I think it's a forged plastic. This thing is a laser beam. Slight hyzer to just flip up dead straight. Hit it flat, might get a little slow drift right the whole time with a baby fade at the end. Don't know how I missed out on the Method train last year, but this is probably my favorite mid-range mold in our lineup. I love the shape and how it feels in the hand, and this has been a game changer for me this year. One notch up from that, I have a Primal Run Method. This is beef. This thing, I just got this recently from Gannon. I mean, I can hammer over on this. It's like a really stable MD4. Any wide open approach from, I don't know, 350 or so, where I can just throw a nice pushing hyzer and just give it some air. This is probably what I'm reaching for. Next up, Baby, a C-Line MD5. Also got this very beginning of last year, and was my saving grace for forehand approaches. But this one, I actually only use backhand. I can hit this on anhyzer and just let it naturally fight out and push, and it's just gotten so much straighter. Small diameter just helps it get there fast, and as it beats in, it's just drawing out a little bit more and more distance. But I mean, this C-line plastic when it beats up is unmatched. This thing has saved me many strokes. And lastly, in the mid lineup, we have Metal Flake MD5, only forehand, blue one's only backhand, but yeah, this one, I mean, they're honestly about the same stability probably. This one's a touch flatter, which I love for forehands. I can really just get that thumb in there, and I think the little bit more shallow feeling it creates just allows me to really hammer on this thing. MD5's been my favorite mid in the lineup. Personally, chop flex forehands anywhere from 160 all the way up to 300 has been my favorite go-to approach. This thing is super versatile and, I mean, helped my approach game immensely. First up in the fairways, keeping it going, understable to stable, my get out of jail free card. D-line, FD. I'm not good at throwing those anhyzer rollers. I mean, this thing is just super hyzer flip, get down on a heavy cut and just take off. This thing flies like a tilt upside down on tomahawks just because of how understable it is. So any shot that I need to just quick pan, dump out, don't like using this because it normally means I'm not in a good spot. So, but when I am off the fairway, this is super crucial. Next up, C-line FD. These pink ones, the dome on them were just perfect and fit my hand. I mean, I picked it up and it felt like a unicorn disc where I was like, I need to get as many of these as I can. Yeah, I mean, I can punch this thing out to 430 if need be. It's just, I mean, I can also dial down and just a nice hyzer flip straight shot on mid to upper threes. It's so workable, and yeah, and it helps that my get out of jail free card's also an FD, familiar mold. I like to simplify those as much as possible, but yeah, this thing, the glide on these is insane. I've never had a 7-speed I've enjoyed more than FD. Next up, another FD. Also, found this, similar thing to the pink. Wow, this fits my hand amazing. I need as many of these as possible. So I also have a stack of 7 of these, and these are more stable than those pink ones. I can hit this flat, hard, to even slight anhyzer and just let it drift right the whole time as it's trying to fight out of it. I can also throw this anywhere from low 400s to dialing back on just very little hyzer flip, little cut glide pushing hyzers. I've really learned how good this disc is in the last few weeks, and it's gotten me a ton of birdies, but this Glow FD is insane. Last 7-speed I have in the bag is the FD1. This was the first one I threw in the bag when I joined Team Discmania last year, and throw this into the pile of things I'd look for multiple hours, days, you name it. This is gotten so beat up, it's probably about time to throw a new one in on top of this. This thing is a laser beam. Throwing this thing just nice and flat, slight hyzer, pop up, ride, dump. I mean, occasionally I'll throw this on forehand if it's kind of a weird hole that calls for it, but I usually don't forehand 7 speeds a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, this is just so comfortable in the hand. It's definitely right up there with, I mean, FD, FD1, just 1 and 2 slots of favorite 7 speeds I've ever thrown. This thing is perfect. On to FD3s, Doombird 2. This thing is beat up over the years. I'm finally getting that 9-speed that I can really just hyzer flip the push dead straight or hit straight and get like a small little flex out of it. But I love coming over on this thing on just slight anhyzer and letting it just draw left. And then with that little bit of fade at the right, or just big pushing hyzers. I used to only throw this thing really on like 350 and lower, but I mean, I can throw this thing like 390, close to 4 if I needed to. Yeah, and I backhand this rarely, but it is pretty similar in stability to FD1. So most of the time I'll just throw FD1, but this is really mainly forehand disc. Next up, Horizon FD3. This thing is a tank. This is my most used fairway for forehands. I don't even know where to begin. This thing is just so good. Overstable, just flex lines, chop forehands, pushing hyzers. I mean, I can stretch this thing out to right around 350, 330s, right around the max comfort range of where I like to hammer it, because I can just hit it flat and let it dump. But this is my workhorse on sidearms in the fairway department. I also like hitting this thing high, flat, or slight anhyzer on backhands for those like pushing stall shots, like hole 9 at USDGC on that little peninsula. Probably my favorite overstable forehand, like 9-speed I've ever thrown. It's just, I don't know what I'd do without this in my bag, and have a nice little stack of these at home too. Next up, the SPLICE. Shout out Disco Fever. He sent me this from, I think it was New Zealand. I didn't really bag a SPLICE last year because the Horizon FD3 was so stable, but as that's beaten in, this thing's kind of found its way in the bag. On top of it, just looks amazing. But I love this for just super stable chop forehands, little low skip shots, just crazy anhyzer backhands that like to dump. Holes like this are perfect for the SPLICE. Super stable chop forehand where the fairway opens up, a little left to right shot instead of a backhand. This is like the most stable I would ever want anything in my bag, probably. This doesn't get a crazy ton of use, but it's also it's my stability get out of jail free card. Thrown upside down, this thing just pans like the most unstable thing in the world, or just crazy soft, high anhyzer forehands that just keep panning out, trying to fight out of it. Great utility to have in the woods. This is kind of just my backup SPLICE. Alden Harris gave this to me. Anytime I just kind of have a bad hole or something, I get this out and just kind of fold this disc a little bit. Doesn't really get thrown a whole lot, more of just a relieve anger type of thing. Yeah, this is my Gannon Burr SPLICE, and kind of just in there as a cooling down tool mid-round. And then lastly, we got the C-Line PD first run, and this thing is just a laser beam, small hyzer flips that just push dead straight. I'll sometimes use it for flicks if Doombird 2 for some reason just isn't filling the slot for that shot. They're just slightly different, where this thing just gets to flat and holds with some fade. But yeah, big little pushing hyzers, also great in the woods. But PD is kind of a mold that I've never had in the bag, obviously, before last year, and it took some time to figure it out because it was always in my mind, why not throw a 9-speed? But they're just so different. Just getting that little bit extra distance with that great fairway feel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'd do without a PD in the bag. First up, S-Line DD3. Had this in the bag all last year. This is pretty understable now. For little sidearms, for those that are gonna drop it in the comment, yes, a 1-finger sidearm. But this thing is just, I mean, knife hyzer, flip up, drift left. I can stand still this thing probably 430 on sidearm. It just goes so far with such little effort. Next up, my George Kittle S-Line DD3. Got him to sign that the other day while filming season 3 of Urban Disc Golf. This right now is my main dog. This is I mean, just so versatile. Max distance backhands, hit it flat, just let it drift right. Just nice pushing cut glide hyzers that just slowly flip up the whole time. I mean, I can throw this thing like 450 sidearms, if not a little further. I mean, torque resistant, handles the wind, just all around approaching one of my favorite distance drivers I've ever had. Next up is the Swirly S-Line Skystone PD2. This has been one of my favorite distance drivers in my bag. This PD2 mold is just so good. It almost feels a little faster than old PD2s, and it's just allowing me to bite off a little extra distance. The feel is so good. I mean, I love this thing for just slight anhyzers out of the hand and just pushing right with that classic little PD2 finish. Shots that like to require a power forehand, I'm always reaching for the PD2. I can really just hammer on this and it's perfect for a hole like this. For not being crazy overstable, I mean, it's just like my max distance headwind disc. I just hyzer flip, drift right, come back left. This gets a ton of use. Next up, we have another S-Line PD2. Just a notch up from that purple one. This thing is perfect for just hitting flat. If I hit this super hard flat, it'll naturally just move right a touch and then just start that PD2 finish. But this thing is very reliable in the wind and just a must. Yeah, the only one left after this one. The one and only Hypno-Huck PD2. This thing is a tank with glide though. I mean, just that nice pop top. The same, basically like my Horizon FD3, but 12 speed and PD2. I can hit this anhyzer up high, let it stall. I love it for high chop stall forehands that dump back and just power hyzers. This thing is so good and has been so crucial to my game. I mean, no wind is gonna turn this over for me, but I've never had a distance driver that's this stable yet glidey. And this is kind of the same thing with the PD. Kind of took some time to understand the PD2 mold. But yeah, I don't know what I'd do without a PD2 in my game, but this is my overstable beef must have. And that rounds out all the discs I got in my bag. Couple extra items I always like to have on is a chump chalk bag. Hands get super sweaty, especially here in the Midwest, and I need that super slick grip. Sweets Kendama. Rory McIlroy always says juggling is the best way to just get locked in, focus. This is that for me. It's just a nice skill toy, use on backups. And lastly, my special mini. I got this in 2019 from my girlfriend Kennedy, and I would have a panic attack if I lost this. So this is my go-to mini, and don't know what I'd do without that. Haven't used another one since. That concludes my in the bag. Thank you, Discmania, for obviously everything you do for me and just providing the best plastic on the market. Pound for the bags, Titan Disc Golf, Sweets Kendamas, and Chump Chalk. That does it. See you guys out there.